Welcome everyone to tonight's meetings on Monday, May the 16th. A little bit different. We're going to do a public hearing first on the budget presentation. So most of the rules about speaking are the same, but just for your information, if citizens would like to speak, I'd ask you to come to the podium, state your name, address, and then seeing the volume of citizens we have in our audience and those signed on remotely, we'll continue to allow up to 5 minutes in consideration for your speaking. Just if somebody before you said that, just say ditto or something like that, and you don't need to repeat everything. The purpose of the public comment is to provide information and the speaker's view for consideration by council. Any questions raised by the speaker will not be answered by council during the public hearing, but will be referred for follow-up by the city administrator or city staff after conclusion. Not appropriate in the public hearing or public comment period for the speakers to debate the matter with other speakers, the audience, or member councils. All comments should be addressed to the chair. After being recognized by the chair, the council may pose questions to the speaker for clarification or whatever. Okay, so that would be our public comment for our public hearing portion. Tonight will be for the budget presentation. If anyone would like to speak now, or would you rather hear the presentation first and then speak? It's up to you. Anyone from the audience who would like to speak now can come forward. Hearing none, we'll offer that one more time. I believe our public hearing for our budget presentation. Mr. Madden, are you ready for that?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, members of the public. I want to present the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget. As recommended, the fiscal year 2023 budget totals approximately $42.7 million, a 0.02 increase from the adopted budget of council from last year. As presented, the budget is balanced, requires no tax, millage, or fee increase, and serves as a efficient expenditure plan for the upcoming year to provide excellent city services to the residents of Mauldin. The budget represents a careful balancing of several factors and considerations. The budget as presented is future focused. As I mentioned, it doesn't provide any fee increases, doesn't recommend any tax increases. But in developing the budget, city staff looked at future revenue growth, which continues to only show a modest increase. So it's relatively flat based on the city's projected tax collections. The revenues for the general fund were projected to be 3% higher this year, so it's still relatively modest in growth. There are a number of economic indicators that city staff use in developing the budget. The residential growth here in the city continues to be really steady, along with commercial and the industrial growth. The unemployment rate of the city remains low compared to the national average. The city's unemployment rate is about 2.7% as compared with the national average, which is about 4%. The median home sales continue to grow. However, inflation is also growing as well. It's exceeding the 10-year forecast for the state. The budget as presented is structurally balanced. That means that it does not rely on any of the city's unassigned fund balance or assigned general fund balance. So it's strictly based off the projected resources and revenues that the city will receive. As presented, the budget does not have any reductions in the current service levels. So the current service levels as they are now will remain for the upcoming fiscal year. Also, the city staff considered the state mandated pension costs, the increase in the retirement is 1% increase that was mandated by the state for this year. It's also anticipated that there will be an increase mandated next year as well. Staff also looked at this current year and how the end of the year looks. Right now, all of the projections for the end of the year are within the current parameters. So Staff did not see anything that would adversely impact the end of the year and how the city closes out its current fiscal year. Also, what was considered was the continued recovery from the impact of COVID-19, particularly the market-driven sources of revenue, including your hospitality and accommodation taxes, business license, and construction permits. As a result, the projections for revenues for fiscal year 2023 with those market-driven revenue sources remain flat. Staff also considered the priorities of City Council, healthy living, safety, and wellness, which is facilitated by trying to enrich the quality of life for city residents through the beautification of public spaces, environmental stewardship, and promoting opportunities for community involvement. Economic prosperity and development, which is defined by the city serving as a catalyst for continued economic investments in the city and trying to retain, recruit, and attract new businesses to the city's economic base. Organizational excellence is another priority of the council, which is defined by providing excellent public services and making sure the work environment here in the city is collegial. Infrastructure improvement is another one of council priorities that guided the development of the budget. Really focused on the city's motorized and non-motorized transportation network, improving city-owned streets, and also looking at the city's stormwater infrastructure. And strategic investments, which will provide for the city responsibly managing its existing resources and assets. There are key principles that staff use in developing the budget, particularly trying to be conservative in projections for revenues and expenditures, trying to maintain the fund balance strength by not relying on the unassigned fund balance, but actually trying to maintain what's there. Staff wanted to make sure that the budget was mission and goal driven, mission of the city and the vision of the city, and also identify and take advantage of any potential cost savings. This chart here is an explanation of or illustrates the expected revenue growth of the city. This general fund, as you can see, over the past eight or so years, the growth of the revenues for the general fund over the past 3 years in particular still remain right around 3%. Some of the noteworthy initiatives included in the recommended budget, the continuation of moving the city sanitation operations to automation. There's a funding included for purchasing 2 side loading trash trucks. Investing in the city's personnel, there's funding to include an up to 3% merit increase citywide. Also, based on the budget workshops that were held by council, it's also recommended to increase the starting pay for city police officers. As a side note, I think it's important to recognize that currently the city has a request for proposal out soliciting bids for a comp and class study citywide. The expectation is to review those proposals and for the council to select a firm to conduct a citywide comp and class study for consideration in fiscal year 2024's budget. Also, there's funding set aside in the capital budget for continuing the replacement of the city's police fleet. Last year was the first year of that effort, and what's recommended is to continue that for the second year. Also included in the recommended budget is staffing increases. There's a proposed to add 3 positions to the city's jobs. So you have 1 police officer, a theater program director in the community development department, and a custodial position, a full-time custodial position for the public works department. The recommended budget also includes investments in the city's infrastructure. There's over $1.7 million included for improvements to the city's stormwater, sewer, and city-owned roads. There's also over $250,000 set aside for investing into the city's current parks and existing city facilities, mainly through your HVAC replacements. And also there's funding set aside to seed fund a bridge maintenance fund once the pedestrian bridge going across I-385 is completed. There'll be funding set aside to assist with maintaining and keeping that bridge up in the future. A couple of noteworthy points that I mentioned earlier, the total budget for, as recommended for fiscal year 2023 is $42.7 million. This table here in the PowerPoint presentation gives you an overview of each of the funds that make up the city's total budget. You have a general fund, special revenues fund, capital project fund, debt service fund, and enterprise fund. A review of the recommended budget will reveal a number of decreases from last year, from the current year to the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023, specifically with the capital projects fund, debt service fund, and the enterprise fund. So with the capital projects fund, the main difference for the decrease is the expenditure of bond funds that were set aside last year for repaving city-owned roads and the construction of the pedestrian bridge. So as those projects move forward, any unexpended funds for this current fiscal year will be encumbered and rolled over to next year. That's why you have a decrease projected out for fiscal year 2023 in the capital projects fund as compared with this current fiscal year. Debt service fund, the primary reason for the decrease there really is the way the city's installment purchase revenue bond is being reported and accounted for. So last year, the city issued debt to fund the construction of a fire station and police substation. Those funds are no longer held in the debt service fund, but they're now reported for in the special revenue fund. And also the decrease in the enterprise fund for next year is primarily due to the fact that the city no longer has a lease for property at 1 Jenkins Court. Formerly, the city leased property to Healy Brown. That lease has been terminated, and Healy Brown no longer leases that space. Looking at the city's revenues for the proposed budget, as you can see, the city has a variety of revenue sources. The primary difference in the revenue sources for the upcoming fiscal years as opposed to this current fiscal year is the expenditure of funding made available through the American Recovery Plan Act. So in the budget, there's approximately $6 million that has been set aside to fund qualified ARPA expenditures. On the expenditure side of the budget, there was a total increase of about 2.58% for the fiscal year 2023 as recommended, as opposed to fiscal year 2022. Again, the primary difference will be the ARPA funds, and the police, fire, public works, and capital projects really account for the vast majority of the city's expenditures. Delving into the general fund is mainly made up of ad valorem property taxes and business licenses and permits. There's a 6% increase. The total and the aggregate for fiscal year 2023 as proposed is about $16.8 million. That's a 6% increase from the adopted budget for this current fiscal year. And again, the recommended budget does not utilize any of your unassigned fund balance or assigned fund balance. Looking at the city's enterprise budget for its enterprise fund, the enterprise fund is made up of the city sewer fund and property management fund. The city operates those funds as actual private businesses. So they have a balance sheet as opposed to your normal fund accounting. But looking at this upcoming fiscal year as compared to last year, there is a decrease. And again, that's due to the fact that the city terminated a lease for its property management fund for the Healy Brown Company. Looking at the special revenue funds for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023, special revenue fund houses revenues that can only be expended for a specific purpose. And so as compared with last year, there is a significant increase in the special revenue fund. And that is primarily due to the addition of revenues from the ARPA or American Recovery Plan Act funds. The total recommended budget for the special revenue fund for fiscal year 2023 is $15.3 million as compared to what was adopted for fiscal year 2022, which is $8.3 million. The city's debt service fund houses all of the funding that's used to pay the city's debt. And so as compared with last year, there is a decrease. The total recommended debt service fund for fiscal year 2023 is approximately $1 million. That's about a $600,000 decrease from the current year. And that is primarily due to the way the city's installment purchase revenue fund is reported. No longer reported for in your debt service fund. It's now in your capital projects fund. And finally, your capital projects fund is where the city funds all of its capital initiatives or its 10-year capital improvement plan. As proposed, it totals $8.2 million for fiscal year 2023, which is a decrease of about 45% from the current fiscal year. And that decrease, again, is primarily due to the expenditure of bond proceeds that were issued last year through this year. Just one more summary table. As you can see, the total budget is $42.7 million. It's balanced, no tax increase, and will serve as an efficient expenditure plan. That concludes my presentation of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Now we're back to public comment. Is there anyone who would wish to speak with questions or concerns or praise for the budget? Hearing none, I say it would be safe to say that the public hearing will now conclude and we'll go into our regular council meeting. So the public hearing will conclude at approximately 7:21 p.m. Again, Mr. Madden. I will call to order our regular scheduled city council meeting on Monday, May the 16th, 2022 at 7:23 p.m. Let the records reflect that, of course, I'm here along with our council members with the exception of Councilman Reynolds, who is not here. Everyone else is here, along with our city clerk, Ms. Miller, our city administrator, Mr. Madden, and various members of city staff and our public. Appreciate you all being here tonight, and Jenny back there, dribbling away, reporting. Appreciate her being here. First order of business will be our invocation and pledge of allegiance of Mr. Allgood.
If you so choose, please bow with me. Heavenly Father, as we come together to conduct the city's business, we pause to reflect on other communities impacted by violence over the weekend. Buffalo, New York, Laguna Woods, California, Houston, Texas. Tonight, we pray for those communities and ours, anyone who has lost a loved one, lost peace of mind, lost faith, lost peace within their families, lost civil peace, lost the trust in others, lost their self-respect. There are many in need of your mercy, your enlightenment, your courage. We ask that you be with us tonight as we assemble to conduct city business. Grant us the things which will help us grow in your love. In your name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Allgood. I also failed to mention that our city attorney, Mr. Dugan, is here. So thank you. Make a note of that. All right. Next order of business, proclamation and presentations. I should have passed out copies of this because I think everyone up here at the dais would have wanted to have read this one in unison. To declare May the 1st through the 7th, 2022 as Municipal Clerks Week in South Carolina, to recognize and honor the valuable contributions that municipal clerks make to cities and towns in South Carolina. Whereas the position of city clerk is the only municipal staff role that is required by state law, regardless of a municipality's size or form of government. And whereas all 271 cities and towns in the state are required to have a municipal clerk. And whereas Cindy Miller plays a critical and varied role to support the mayor, city council, and city staff. And whereas municipal clerk's responsibilities under state law including giving notice of meetings to council members and the public, keeping minutes of its proceedings, and performing other duties. And whereas regardless of city size, municipal clerks have seen their roles and responsibilities expand with changing times. And whereas with advancements in software and hardware, municipal clerks have become increasingly adept, skilled at using technology to prepare materials for meeting agenda packets, to record meeting minutes, and to manage public records. And whereas municipal clerks get their professional training from the South Carolina Municipal Finance Officers, Clerks, and Treasurers Association, an affiliate organization of the Municipal Association of South Carolina. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the mayor and council of the city of Mauldin that May 1st through the 7th, 2022, will be Municipal Clerks Week in Mauldin to recognize and honor the valuable contributions that Cindy Miller makes to our city. Done and ratified in council session on this day of May 2022, Mayor Terry Merritt. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Council, join me in saying thank you. Even though I was a little late. There you go. Thank you. Also tonight, a Kids to Parks Day National Park Trust proclamation proclaiming May 21st, 2022 as Kids to Parks Day in the city of Mauldin. Whereas May the 21st, 2022 is the 12th Kids to Parks Day organized and launched by the National Park Trust held annually on the third Saturday of May. And whereas Kids to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit local parks, public lands, and waters. And whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle, to combat issues of childhood obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and hypercholesterolemia. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will recognize the importance of recreating responsibly while enjoying the benefits of the outdoors. Now, therefore, I, Terry Merritt, Mayor of the City of Mauldin, do hereby proclaim May 21st, 2022 as Kids to Parks Day, signed on this day, May the 16th, 2022. Next item on our agenda is our reading and approval of minutes for our city council meeting of April the 18th, 2022. What's the pleasure of council?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. King, Mr. Matney. Any corrections, clarifications? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next item is reading and approval of minutes for special called meeting of May the 9th, 2022.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Matney and a second by Ms. King. Any discussion, clarifications, corrections?
I was not here, so I'm going to refrain from voting.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kuznar. Any other? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion, those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 5-0 with Ms. Kuznar refraining since she wasn't here. Refraining. We are now to the first public comment. Those who've signed up for any item on our agenda tonight would be where you would speak. Now, I think you're not on an agenda item, so you get to hang around and listen to everything before we get back to you. Thank you, Mr. Heiss. Next item are finance and a report from our standing committees. I'm sorry, report from our city administrator. Sorry, Mr. Madden.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I do not have a report this evening.
Thank you, sir. Report from our standing committees, finance and policy. Mr. Reynolds is not here. Does anyone else on the committee have anything? Hearing none. Public safety, Ms. King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just checking my calendar. The only thing I had to report is next Friday, the 27th, we're having the groundbreaking out at the property for the new fire station. So I think we're going to have the new trucks out and 10 o'clock. Thank you, Chief. But the 3 new trucks will be out there as well, right? Okay. So please come.
Fantastic.
27th at 10 o'clock.
I was looking over the shoulder to see if our newest K-9 officer was still here, but evidently she has took a break. So if you didn't see her, the little fluffy dog was Margot. It is our new K-9 officer, just to come back from her first training session, I understand.
She still has puppy breath.
You'll get a chance in the future to see her. Fantastic. Public Works, Mr. Kraling.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you, sir. Economic Planning and Development, Mr. Matney.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have 2 items tonight. Number one, dovetailing on great events for May 27th. That'll be the kickoff night for Beach and Fridays for 2022. So make sure to be at the Cultural Center at 7 o'clock. And also, I just want to highlight very quickly that this Friday, the 20th, is Kiera Hyder's last day with the city. And I just want to thank her on behalf of everyone in the city of Mauldin for all that she's done at the Cultural Center and helping to organize the programming that has occurred over there for the past several years, and wish her well in all of her future endeavors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. I think we all join you in wishing her the best. Building codes, Ms. Kuzma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to report that 4 new businesses opened in April.
Good. Thank you, ma'am. Recreation, Mr. Allgood.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Next item is unfinished business. There is none. We'll move on to new business for first reading. Ms. Miller.
First order.
That was a little loud, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
She just wanted to wake
I
everyone.
was like, do we need to revoke that?
Y'all just were very nice to me and I paid you that way. Right, let's try that again. The first ordinance is an ordinance approving a major change to the Center Point Plan Development District.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I believe that comes out of BDS. Ms. Kuzma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could ask David Deerhog to come up and speak about this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have an update on this item tonight. The buyer and the seller of the property involved with this major change in the project that's been proposed there is going through some negotiating on some contractual issues. So they've asked to hold this item, and it would be the recommendation of staff to refer this back to committee while they work through those contractual issues. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to send this back to committee.
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Matney. Any discussion to send this back to committee? Hear none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hear none, the motion carries 6-0 to return this to committee. Miller, back to you.
Next item is an ordinance to rezone property consisting of approximately 8.1 acres located at 711 North Main Street and 713 North Main Street and providing an effective date.
Ms. Miller, I think this is BDS. Back to you, Ms. Kuzma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I would like to make a motion to approve the rezoning on this property, 711 North Main and 713 North Main, from C2 and R20 to RM multifamily residential.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kuzma. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. King. Any discussion? Mr. Crayland.
In 2019, I was a citizen, first time coming to the City Hall here. We met with the Planning Commission, had the attorney for this property. And at the time, this was all, I believe, R20. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. And it was converted, had to be commercial because it was unfair for the property owner to not have that commercial. And I'm looking in, but they left the part of the property R20 in the back. Now, this is to convert all this, if I read this properly, if I understood this correctly, to RM. So there will be, all that property then will now be rated as RM. I am concerned about the traffic going through not only Knollwood neighborhood, but also coming on to North Main Street, whether South Carolina DOT will even permit the traffic to go through there, going through the entrance. I have a lot of concerns. On this, I'll be voting no today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crayland. Any other discussion, questions?
I have one question. I believe the developer's here. One of the things that was discussed at committee, and want to reaffirm if we may, the standards talk about setbacks of 20 feet, 10 feet, and 15 feet. And the developer, I believe, stated before that he's looking at a 50-foot buffer. So I was just calling you up to see if we can confirm that that is still the plan.
That is still the plan, yes.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the rezoning of 711, 713 North Main Street from C2 and R20 to RM. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 5-1 with Mr. Cradling dissenting. Over back to you.
The next ordinance is an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Article 2, Business Licenses, Section 6, which is deductions, exemptions, and charitable organizations of the Mauldin Code of Ordinances to exempt short-term vendors at public markets from the business license tax.
Also PDS, Ms. Kuzner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Kuzner, second, Mr. Matney. The motion is to approve the amendments to the section. Let me get it straight here.
Section 6.
There it is. Thank you. Motion to amend Chapter 10, Section 6 for short-term vendors at public markets. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to amend Chapter 10, Section 6 for short-term vendors at public markets, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Miller.
Next ordinance is the FY22 Budget Amendment Ordinance.
So this would normally come to finance. Is there anyone on the committee like to take it?
I'll take it, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to, for the budget amendment ordinance, fiscal year end 22.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coons. Okay, a motion to amend our FY 2022 budget amendments ordinance. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion to amend our FY 2022 budget carries. Next item.
Council is requested to approve an amended resolution to certify property at and adjacent to 1 Jenkins Street as an abandoned textile mill site.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. This would need, next items would need, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of myself. We're good.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Crayley. Any discussion? Mr. Crayley.
Just on this discussion of when we can sign this, if the property is in the city's hands or if this is sold, is there any concern conditions with that? That was a question brought up. So, man, is there an issue of timing on the signature? Does we have to wait till property exchanges hands?
Mr. Craylin, as I understand it, in talking with Mr. Duggan and Mr. Hughes, city's legal counsel, no, there's not. But Mr. Duggan is here and he could elaborate on that.
It's on the timer.
I mean, how long?
3 minutes.
Okay. This is coming before this body by the owner of the property that has the ability to ask for this at any time, whether it's any potential development or not.
Is this not?
Of course, this allows the property owner certain advantages in terms of development. As you all know, there is discussions concerning the development of this property with a specific developer. But at this time, that is not complete.
This is not city property currently?
No. I don't know if it's city-owned property at this time, but the textile certifying this as prior textile property can be done whether or not there's a contract to sell it or develop it.
No, I guess if this is city property.
Yes, this is city property. We haven't closed on it yet.
Yes. And so can we, I don't think we can apply for that. We have to wait till it, as a city municipality, I believe, or there's a question. Can we apply for it, or do we have to wait till the property has exchanged hands for a private owner to apply for this? That's the question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not applying for anything. All we're doing with this is certifying that the site is an abandoned textile mill.
That's correct. And then that has potential benefits, whether the city develops it or whether somebody else does.
I was just worried about the timing.
Okay.
So you might need to hold on to that.
Oh,
I have a quick question. We have in our packet Exhibit C on page 67 from the Appalachian Council of Governments certification, to which it lists 6 parcels of land. We're confident that all 6 of these parcels of land fall into this South Carolina Textiles Community Revitalization Act.
Yes. I did not run that down with ACOG, but my understanding is that Mr. Hughes did. And these are all certified by ACOG as being previously used for textile purposes. And I think you all have a little bit of historic information in there, including a picture of a little girl. And
Yes, we do have that picture of the little girl, but it's specifically talking about certain parcels. Yeah. Not all 6. So I just want to make sure that if the interpretation is all 6, that if we go through with this, that we're not going to come back and someone say, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't all 6. It was just 2 of the 6, or 3 of the 6, or 4 of the 6, or 5 of the 6.
Well, my understanding is that Mr. Hughes spoke with the staff at ACOG, who said they had the information sufficient for certification, which they did. So we're relying on the research they did, but I've never had a problem with anything that ACOG has done. I don't think they would certify if there was any question in the information they had. You could delay this and ask them to provide you specific information on each parcel if there is any concern.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I just wanted to note, I'm sure everyone recognized it, but the resolution does address each tax map number. So those would be the properties that were identified by all parties. So if there, did that help clarify? Maybe.
Maybe.
But it's up to you all if you want to get more information before you act or not.
I mean, I'm fine with moving it forward. I just want to make sure that we just don't get kicked in the rear end if it ends up being incorrect some way, shape, or form. If we're saying that what is written here is correct, then I'm all for it.
So the motion before us is just a motion to accept the certification of these 6 tax properties as former textile mill sites. Believe it or not, this predates me. I do remember one aspect of it, but not all of it. I had to defer to Mr. Matney. But either way, is allowing whoever the owner would be if they wanted to apply for the credits as a certified tax mill site, based on the advice of ACOG, which should have done due diligence, and we heard legal counsel saying they've done it in the past, so he feels comfortable with it. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carried 6-0. I guess it should have said it was a motion to accept the amended resolution. Said that. Okay, Ms. Miller.
Council is requested to approve a school resource officer agreement with the Greenville County School District for the provision of SROs at Mauldin High School, Mauldin Middle School, Mauldin Elementary School, Bethel Elementary School, and the Golden Strip Career Center.
Okay, thank you. This is public safety. Ms. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve the school resource officer agreement.
Okay, is there a second for Mr. Matney? Any discussion? Ms. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add, I mentioned this during committee meetings, but currently we have two separate agreements. And a few years back, we addressed this with saying that when the renewal came up, we would combine the two agreements into one. So that's what this agreement does. It puts all of our resource officers under one agreement moving forward.
Okay. Ms. King. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the SRO agreement with Greenville County School Districts as a combined for all of our schools, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous. Ms. Miller.
Council is requested to consider two appointments to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. That's coming from BDS. Ms. Kuzner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recently, we, or the Planning Commission, had two seats coming up available, and the BDS committee interviewed 4 people. We appointed 2 people to the Planning Commission. Now we've had 2 additional people on the Planning Commission resign. And we also have 2 expiring terms coming up in June, but Mr. Pagliunga and Mr. Sofield, they would like to be reappointed. So right now we've got in your package, you've got the application from Mr. Bixler and from Ms. Locklear. And so at this time, I would like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Bixler to seat 6 and Ms. Locklear to seat 7, and reappoint Mr. Pagliunga and Mr. Sofield to their seats.
Ms. Kuzner, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Allgood. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to appoint the 2 candidates for seats 6 and 7, along with the reappointment of the 2 current members for seat 2 and 5, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries 6-0. Back to you, Ms. Miller.
Council is requested to approve the franchise agreement with Duke Energy. This is actually a misprint on the agenda. It came out of the Finance and Policy Committee, not the Building Codes Committee.
City. Would you like to step in on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
I will go ahead and make the motion to approve the franchise agreement with Duke Energy.
We have a motion. Ms. King, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Kuzner. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the franchise agreement with Duke Energy, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Council is requested to approve a contract with Brenz and Company or Script Sourcing to administer the city's medical expense reimbursement plan.
Also, this would normally come from finance. Ms. King, you like to step in again?
Sure. So this is through our human resources. So if anyone has any questions, I'm sure Mr. Putman would be happy to address. But this is, as Ms. Miller said, a contract through script sourcing to administer our medical expense reimbursement plan. So having said that, motion to approve the contract with script sourcing.
I have a motion, Ms. King. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Mattney. There any question? Yes, legal will weigh in. Let me hear this. We want it on the record.
I wanted all of you that are served by this council to know I've been representing cities 42 years. Multiple cities still do. Me and Mr. Hughes and our associates. Mauldin does not execute any contract. We do not go through line by line. Unlike some cities we represent, which is a tremendous benefit to the public in the city. And I invite you all to go online to look at this next contract, because you're going to see we struck all kind of things out of it that were unfair to the city or required the city to do things they can't do. One example of that is we can't indemnify a party we contract with in the event they are sued by another party. That's prohibited by South Carolina law. Almost every contract we get has an indemnification clause in it we have to strike. And those of you who care about the city and come to these meetings, go through, and this is a classic example of what we do because this council cares and provides such good service to this community. And I want to commend this body because you all are so thorough about this, and it's really important for the public because you all are the ones who end up being impacted. But what I want to let you all know is that all of these revisions we did that are highlighted were accepted except one in paragraph 5. It's highlighted in yellow, so I wanted to mention that to you. You will see that I revised this paragraph because they're a California company. They wanted California law to apply to interpretations of the contract, and they wanted any litigation to take place in California. So they contend they don't have a presence here. And so ordinarily, in our contracts, we require companies, if they're going to litigate, to do that here in South Carolina under our law, if they're doing a service for this city. Their counsel, who reviewed all of these revisions, recommended to their company that they don't agree to that. The California law would apply. So I want you all to know that that one change was rejected and the implications of that. Now, as a practical matter, it is unlikely that we'll end up in actual litigation over it. But we're worst case scenario planners. So we always think about what's the worst thing that could happen here if you accept this as is, and we do get in a dispute, although it's likely California law would apply. So that's the one thing I want to draw your attention, that ordinarily the companies accept this if they're going to do business. This company chose not to. Any questions?
Were any other states considered besides California and South Carolina?
No.
Is there a reason why?
Because they're a California company located in South Carolina. It would be peculiar to try to apply the law of some other state. They are familiar with California law. We know South Carolina law. So ordinarily it's one or the other.
You had inserted, I guess, Section 8 governing law states the laws of the state of South Carolina. That was accepted by them?
I'm unclear because it came back with that inconsistency. And Mr. Madden, I don't know if he spoke with anyone or whether Mark was putting up the.
Mayor, could I have your question again?
Our attorney spoke to the Section 5, the indemnification clause that basically would be governed by the state of California versus South Carolina. But then over in Section 8, it was called governing law, and we've inserted that it would be the laws of the state of South Carolina, prevailing party, blah, blah, blah. So does that supersede this, or is it just another section that has nothing to do with the indemnification clause?
It has nothing to do with that clause.
Any questions from council? I know this is legalese. I feel comfortable with the understanding. I didn't write down who seconded it. Somebody remind me, or did I even ask for a second? Mr. Madden?
I did, Mayor.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a motion for us to approve the contract with Script Sourcing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries favorably. Thank you. Next item. Next two items would be before us as committee of the whole via the informal method. I'd ask council to consider that.
Move we consider the next two items informally.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Madden and a second by Ms. King. Is there any discussion? All in favor of considering the next two items on the agenda, J and K, via the informal method, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, we will consider next two items informally. Ms. Miller.
The first is an ordinance establishing a sewer pump station fee for additional parcels of the Indigo Point development and for certain properties near and adjacent to the Indigo Point development, creating a lien for unpaid sewer pump station fees and other matters related thereto.
Thank you. This would normally be handled by Public Works.
Or finance and policy, either one.
We'll give Mr. Craven an opportunity. Would you like to handle this one, Mr. Craven?
Yeah, let's make the motion.
Yeah.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to, for council to approve the first reading of the ordinance to establish a sewer pump station fee for additional parcels in the Indigo Point development, creating a lien for unpaid sewer pump station fees as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Craven. I have the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Ms. King. Any discussion? I think it should note that the fee that is being set is $73 annual fee per parcel. Okay, so I think you should see as over the years we've approved these associated with Indigo Point. The price point has come down because we're adding more and more homes to that pump station. That's getting the fee a little bit lower. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the sewer pump fee and additional parcels of that $73 per parcel, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries 6-3.
The last item tonight is an ordinance to provide appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023 for ordinary and other city purposes, to provide for a levy of taxes on all taxable property in the city of Mauldin for all city purposes, including sufficient tax for any principal and interest on outstanding indebtedness maturing in the fiscal year, to provide for the expenditure of said taxes and other revenues coming to the city during the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. This would be coming out of finance. And we are privileged to have a finance expert with us who filling in for Mr. Reynolds. So please, Ms. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one actually, yes, makes me feel like I'm back at home again, so to speak. So with my privilege and Mr. Reynolds' absence, first, this is first reading of our budget ordinance, and I would like to, again, in Mr. Reynolds' absence, take the time to thank Mr. Madden for his hard work along with our staff. Holly always does a fantastic job. And for those who probably don't realize, but our entire team comes together starting probably November, December, and work very hard together before the budget is presented to council. So with great sadness, I will say this is our last budget with Mr. Madden, as he will be moving on with his career. So I, for one, will miss him tremendously and his talent that he has with managing our city funds. So again, I will, on first reading, make the motion to adopt the ordinance for our fiscal year end 22-23 operating budget for the amount of $42,715,392.
Ms. King, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Matney. Is there any discussion? You can imagine as we went through this, there was lots of discussion. As you go through a budget this size with the 7 people that sit through this, no one would be happy with everything that was in it. This, what is best for the overall good of the city. And it's always, for me, an honor and a privilege to sit with this group to go through that, because we look at everything and talk it out. And so we are, I was happy to see that we came to consideration of this for first reading. And of course, I think we have one more budget workshop for second reading. That being said, all those in favor of the motion to give first reading approval of the ordinance to provide the appropriation for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and ending on June 30th, 2023, the amount of $42,715,390. Say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries on first reading. That's the end of my package. Next item up is public comment. Sure. Please state your name and address for the record, and we'll get the microphone back to you. We got this new data streaming we're doing for our citizens, so we got to have you on record. Okay.
Mayor, may I go ahead and agree with Riley before he starts? I mean, I see what his topic is going to be, and I think we're all going to agree with it.
Yeah, we all agree. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. That's enough.
Thank you.
Go ahead, please, sir.
First of all, I want to say that, boy, Mauldin's really growing, and man, a lot of things are happening, and it's a win-win for us. And no increase in city taxes. I've been here for 40 some years. Wow. I mean, my friends come down from up north and visit me, and they say, what's your property taxes and what's your city tax? And I tell them, and man, they all want to move down here. I discourage them. But anyway, we have a litter problem big time in Mauldin. It's getting out of hand, really. I live off Miller Road there on Swinton, 104 Swinton Drive. And the state is not doing their fair share, for one thing. And that's a state road. And we're getting, I've driven around the city of Mauldin, different areas, and I've noticed a thing. When we have trash collection day, a lot of the businesses, or individuals also, but businesses mostly, they have overflowing trash containers. I'm thinking maybe we could enforce our city ordinance to make them buy another trash container or something like that. Or maybe we could use some of that Palmetto Pride money that we got for litter, then maybe we could help the businesses out by making an enclosure of some kind where they could put their cans or something inside of an enclosure, which would be open for the new automatic truck. I don't know how that would work, but I'm just throwing things out there. But we do need to address the litter problem in Mauldin. We have to make it a big time project. I know in the old days we had a litter day. I think Councilman Black we got the bags up and stuff like that, and we announced a litter day for the city of Mauldin. And it was like a Saturday or something, and there all the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and all the civic organizations got together. And they met, I think it was over at the grade school, and they passed out and they give them sections, and everybody went around, picked up litter, and it was wonderful. They collected tons of trash. So I think we might want to go back to that again. We're having so much through traffic in Mauldin, and people are coming and going, especially from Woodruff Road down Miller. It's just unbelievable, the trash it's collecting out there. And it's not anyone's fault. We've had litter forever, but we just got to address the issue and make it I think I'd like to see the city of Mauldin make it a priority. And if we make a strong enforcement, maybe the word will get out. And like we used to have traffic. Nobody wanted to come to Mauldin. But anyway, seriously, I think we may want to enforce the litter code a little more. Just maybe 1 or 2 fines, and maybe people will wake up and say, "Oh, better not do that in Mauldin." Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I have no one else on the list. We're all good. The next item was council concerns. Mr. Crayland.
I know it was just spoken about the litter issue. We've had some discussions between us about some of the what can be done. And I guess formally I'd like to get out that I'd like to look at possibly inviting some of those folks who drive through and litter in our town to spend a Saturday with us with an orange vest on, picking up, and so they know if they do litter in Mauldin, sometimes a fine isn't enough to make people think twice, but spending their Saturday might be. Just throwing that out there and let people think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Madney.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, just I think we're all on the same page, and we love having people drive through the city, but when they threw their trash on the way out, that's when we have a real issue. And I know that as I trek up and down North Main, seeing what's left behind, sometimes carelessly, sometimes on purpose. It's very disturbing to me because it tells me that they don't think very highly of us and that they don't think very highly of our city. And this is a place that we have all chosen on our own to live or to work or to play. And I think that it's important, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, is to dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And our time has really come. There are so many things that are happening in and around the city, and we need to be dressed for all of the things that are coming. And that means getting the trash off of the roads. That means that when there is an accident, once it's cleaned up, that it's completely cleaned up. That when a tractor trailer blows a tire, that we're not seeing shards of rubber in the same spot going down North Main Street for a quarter to a half a mile until the rain washes it all away. So it is important for people, number one, not to put the litter there. Number two, if we can find those who are putting the litter there, to get them to get it up but also we have that grant in place that allows for litter mitigation, and we need to use that for what it was intended for. The other thing that I wanted to say, and I wanted to thank Mr. Allgood for his invocation tonight, because there have been some horrific acts that have taken place across this country over the past several days, weeks, months, and really years. And unfortunately, it is people who have had hate in their hearts, whether it's because of the color of someone's skin, whether it's because of someone's religion. I would hope that with National Day of Prayer just passing, that we can take that day of prayer not just with us for that day, but remember what it is all about as we all move forward, and that we pray for those who have been affected, and that we pray for God, if you believe, to change their hearts. We have a real sin problem in this country, and for about 20 minutes in 2020, when the pandemic first hit, we all gave each other a lot of grace. And that grace has gone out the window, and we've gotten really frustrated with each other. We've gotten angry with each other. And I think that it would behoove us as a city, as a state, and a country to really try and bring some of that grace back. So I would hope that we can be in prayerful consideration of all of that. And I'll shut up, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mack. Anyone else? Just a reminder, we do have coming up on Monday, May the 30th, our Memorial Day ceremony will be held out to at our Veterans Walk. So we're blessed this year that our own American Legion Post 271 will help conduct that ceremony, and it should be a nice remembrance ceremony. So I invite everyone to join us that could at May 30th on a Monday at 11 a.m. Anything else? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of council on adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
The motion second adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. We are adjourned. 8:15 p.m. Thank you.